Goldminded Records, they're not your friends. Welcome to Klive Kraven's 2013 Horror Film Collection Awards, hosted by Klive Kraven, featuring categories and awards for Best Horror Film, Worst Horror Film, Best Horror Comedy Film, Best 80s Slasher Horror, Best Creature Feature Horror, Best Black and White Horror Film, and many more. Stay tuned for the next 60 minutes plus to dive into the world of horror and picking the greatest films of all time. Prepare for the experience of a lifetime. This is the 2013 Klive Kraven Film Collection Awards, presented by Goldminded Records. Sit back, grab some popcorn and a drink, and enjoy the show.
What's going on? It's your host Klive Kraven. Welcome to the 2013 Annual Horror Film Collection Awards. That's right, this is the first one, 2013. First year we're doing this. Every Halloween we're going to try to do one of these. Basically, I'm going to look at every film that's in my horror collection. I have 25 categories. We're going to break down all the categories. There's 4 nominees for each category. A total of 100 different selections here. Basically, broke them all down into categories. What are my favorite films, whether it's black and white, slashers, remakes, sequels, prequels, and whatnot. So we're going to go ahead and start it off and get right into the first category. It is a throwback to the classic of the genre and even of the filmmaking era, and that is black and white horror films. So we're going to go ahead and dive right into it with our first 4 nominees for Best Black and White Horror Film. And this basically encompasses all time. Obviously, most of them are 60s and before, when they switched over to color films. So there is still some modern classic black and white films, but not a ton. They very rarely do that nowadays. So most of these are pre-60s. And the nominees for Best Black and White Film are Night of the Living Dead from 1968, Freaks from 1932, The Haunting 1963, and The House on Haunted Hill from 1959. Very classic films. Love all of them personally. Obviously they made it to the nominations. We have the winner right here. Best Black and White Horror Film. Winner is... handy knife to cut her open. The winner is... Freaks. Absolute classic. 1932 film. One of my favorites. Very, very enjoyable film. I've seen it several times. I rented it the first time from Blockbuster a few years ago. Very happy with it, glad that I rented it. Just an absolute classic film. Very well done, very interesting and different, but very enjoyable. Really love the film. Just a great film all the way around. So let's go ahead and take it into the next category. We're going to keep it moving. Like I said, we have 25 categories, so this will be a long video. Prepare to be buckled in for roughly 60 minutes total to get through this whole thing, but it will be worth it. We're going to have lots of fun. So let's get into the second category, which is one of my favorites, Best Horror Comedy Film. Now this is an interesting topic, category I should say, because the comedy horror genre kind of goes back pretty far, and has been done many times over in different, whether it's satire or slapstick. There's lots of different styles, even inadvertent comedy horrors like It. Insert JP reference. But yeah, It, is one of those films. It's not necessarily full comedy horror, but it has the elements there. And there's a lot of other films that are like that as well. However, we have 4 selections, 4 nominees for Best Horror Comedy Film, and those are as follows. Student Bodies from 1981, Scary Movie from 2000, Shaun of the Dead from 2004, and Beetlejuice from 1988. All 4 great classic films, highly enjoyable. I know a lot of people aren't big on Scary Movie, but I had to throw it in there. I do believe it is a staple in the comedy horror genre. Even the first 2 I will go as far to say. But let's go ahead and see who the winner is. So, the winner for Best Horror Comedy Film is... Beetlejuice. Absolute classic. Beetlejuice is one of my favorite films of all time, period. Very, very enjoyable. The story is just great. I think the acting in it is supreme. Michael Keaton playing the Beetlejuice character is just phenomenal. Really well done, really well put together, and just a really, really fun film. I love every aspect of it, from the handbook of the recently deceased to you know, the whole scene with them making their faces and deciding how they're going to scare the living. I just think it was brilliant. Tim Burton is absolutely amazing. And they are working on a second one, so looking forward to a second Beetlejuice, which I absolutely am. They are supposed to be bringing back a lot of the cast, so let's hope we get a good film out of that. Let's keep it moving into the third one of the night. This is one of my favorite categories, period. It's one of my favorite genres, and you already know that's going to be slashers. This is Best 1980s Slasher Horror Film, and we have 4 nominees as usual, and the nominees are as follows: Maniac from 1981, The Burning from 1981, Sleepaway Camp from 1983, and The Prowler from 1981. The winner for Best 80s Slasher Horror Film is The Burning. And you know what? I gotta say, The Burning is one of those films that I can watch over and over again, and it never seems to get old. As many times I watch it, I just seem to enjoy something about it every single time. The Burning is a really well done horror slasher. Pretty much one of the best in my eyes. It's just absolutely brilliant. Everything about it, from the music, the acting, the villain, the kills, everything about it is very well done. The makeup effects are absolutely phenomenal. Tom Savini kills it. Just a really good film all the way around. Most horror fans already know of The Burning, but if you're not familiar with The Burning, if you're not really a huge horror fan, you may not be familiar with The Burning. If you're not, definitely check it out. Give it a watch. It's a fucking amazing film. Highly enjoyable. Absolutely love it, The Burning. Moving on, the next category. This is a follow-up to the Best 1980s Slasher Films, and that is Best Modern Slasher Horror Film. Now, there's going to be some debate on this one, I'm sure, with the 4 that were chosen for this, but there's reasons why all of these films were chosen. And keep in mind, these are only films that come from the collection that I have. Not all horror films ever, only ones from my collection. So, with that being said, let's move on to Best Modern Slasher Horror Films. We have Scream from 1996. Hatchet from 2006, Maniac Remake from 2012, and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Remake from 2003. Great selections. The winner for Best Modern Slasher Horror Film is Scream. And you know what? Without a doubt, Scream is just one of the movies that I can watch over and over again. I really enjoy it. I know a lot of people aren't huge on it because they say that it's so cliche, and a lot of things are cliche about it, but it's really done well. And in my opinion, it's one of them films that definitely, without a doubt, rebirthed the slasher genre. I think it really breathed life back into it. Wes Craven just brought that feel, that vibe that was perfect for the mid-90s and worked so well, and spawned not only sequels to the film, but a lot of knockoffs, i.e. I Know What You Did Last Summer, among many others. A lot of these films came from the birthing of Scream. I think Scream set the plate for slashers to come alive again in the mid-90s, without a doubt. So definitely deserved on that one. Moving on, we have Best Creature Feature Horror Film. Now, this is a category that I'm not huge on, actually. I'm not real big on creature feature films. They're not one of my favorites, but I do enjoy them, in certain ones, without a doubt. That brings us to this category. So we have 4 nominees. The 4 nominees for Best Creature Feature Horror Film are Jeepers Creepers from 2001, The Mist from 2007, The Host from 2006, and Wishmaster from 1997. Now, all 4 of these films are very enjoyable once again, but there can only be one winner, so let's find out who it is. The Best Creature Feature Horror Film goes to Jeepers Creepers. Jeepers Creepers is just one of those films that I seen growing up. It came out, I believe, in 2001. It's one of those films that I watched several times, and I just couldn't get enough of it. One of the reasons being is the initial scene. The first scene when you watch it and they're going down the street and they see the creeper on the side of the street at the house and they see that body go down. That scene is just so iconic for me and so chilling. And I just absolutely love that whole series of events that takes place in the beginning of the film. And that's why, for me, that Jeepers Creepers definitely takes the Best Creature Feature Film. The second one was not such a great follow-up, but I think that first one is absolutely classic from beginning to end. I think even the ending is excellent because it's not one of those happy ending type films. It's one of the few horror films, that has the balls to have an ending where, there's really no hope for the main character. And I like that. I thought that was brilliant. I thought it was really done well. I think that the creature is phenomenal, and I just really enjoy Jeepers Creepers. Moving on, this is a category that I do enjoy, and I've always kind of had a little knack for this category, and that is Best Nature Horror Film. Now, when you think nature horror films, you kind of think, natural monsters that are in nature, sharks, snakes, alligators, spiders, bugs, ants, whatever it may be. Anything that is not just necessarily a freak monster, ogre, or giant, or killer, or anything like that. And I do enjoy these type of horror films, even though they are seldomly done nowadays. They were more in the 70s and 80s. There was a slew of them that came out. Now in the early 2010s, there doesn't seem to be a ton of them that are coming out nowadays. But it is a genre that I absolutely love. So, without further ado, we have 4 nominees for this one as well. Starting off, the nominees are Jaws from 1975, Lake Placid from 1999, Anaconda from 1997, and Arachnophobia from 1990. All 4 of these films are absolutely classics in their own right. And I will go as far to say classics, even though Lake Placid is only 14 years old or so. In my opinion, the movie is very well put together. It has CGI that is done well, an effective storyline, likable characters, solid score, a phenomenal performance by Betty White, and I just think it's a great film all the way around. Even though a lot of people would probably argue with that being on there, and even Anaconda, and maybe even Arachnophobia, these are films that I feel that have effectively done justice to the nature horror genre. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and find the winner for Best Nature Horror Film, and the winner is Jaws. And that's a pretty obvious one right there. Jaws is an absolute classic film. Watch it time and time again. I just love the build-up and the suspense. It's done really well and done very tastefully. They don't use a ton of gore and violence in the film early on to try to get a shock out of people or to build up the suspense. They do it with music. They do it with a lot of cut frames. They do it with excellent filming and great acting. It's just a really, really enjoyable film, and definitely a staple in the horror genre, period. Not even in just nature horror, but in horror in general. Jaws is an absolute classic, and without a doubt deserves one of these spots. So we've basically gotten through the first fourth of the show. We're going to keep it moving. I have more to the list, obviously. We're going to go ahead and take it into Best Sci-Fi Horror Film. This is a category that a lot of people definitely love and enjoy. It's one of my favorites as well. I do love the sci-fi horror genre. It is not my favorite, but it's definitely a mid-card type genre for me, subgenre for me, that I do enjoy, and I do, try to stay up decently with the films that come out within that subgenre. So, Best Sci-Fi Horror Film, the nominees are Alien from 1979, absolute classic, Ridley Scott. Predator from 1987, one of my favorites, Arnold Schwarzenegger film. Starship Troopers from 1997, another classic. Modern classic, and Apollo 18-20 from 2011, which is a new film that I highly enjoyed, that I thought had an excellent premise and was done very well. But let's go ahead and see who's going to win Best Sci-Fi Horror Film. The winner is Predator, and you know what? Well deserved. The Predator films in general, the first 2 at least, the ones that I'm familiar with, are just absolutely brilliant. I love both of them. I think Danny Glover and Arnold Schwarzenegger did phenomenal jobs, respectively, in both of their roles. I think the Predator character is much more terrifying, grisly, and maniacal than the alien creatures. I do enjoy Alien. I don't want people to get the idea that I dislike Alien or I don't like that series. I absolutely love it. I own it on 3 times over. I own 3 box sets of Alien, so that goes to show I am a huge fan. But something about Predator, I guess, just growing up with it and being around it all the time just really made me fall in love with it. It's one of my favorite genres, and, the sci-fi horror, as I said, and this is why it's one of the ones that I enjoy. Like I said, it's maybe not at the highest of the totem pole for me, but I do enjoy it enough to keep coming back to films like Alien and Predator and Starship Troopers, which I feel do a justice to the sci-fi horror. So moving on, we're going to go ahead and get into the next one now. and that is Best Horror Film Franchise. Now this is one that a lot of you probably thought I was going to wait to the end to do. I wanted to mix it up and give you a big one right in the middle of the show. So we're going to go ahead and look at Best Horror Film Franchise. We have 4 nominees, obviously, as usual. Keep it moving. The first one is Friday the 13th from 1980, Halloween from 1978, Nightmare on Elm Street from 1984, and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 1974. Now, all 4 of these franchises are just simply amazing. All of them brought a lot to the genre. All of them have at least 6 to 7 sequels or more, and they just really encapsulate a large part of the genre that we all love. So, without further ado, which one's going to take the honors for Best Horror Film Franchise? I know this is one that's probably got people on the edge of their seat. The winner for Best Horror Film Franchise is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Now, you may be asking yourself, really? Texas Chainsaw? Some people say that there's a lot of shoddy entries within that. 3, 4, some people didn't even like the remake or the new one that just came out. Now, for me, out of all the entries that are in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre catalog, which there's 7 of them now, I like 6 out of 7. I love 6 out of 7. The first 6 are absolutely great to me, even 4. I know a lot of people hate on 4. I think it's an absolutely brilliant film. I do love it. I will defend it to the death. I think it is very interesting and unique and done well, and I think it brought something to the franchise. But for me in general, that one holds its weight the best, because if I look at Halloween and I look at Friday the 13th and I look at A Nightmare on Elm Street, they're some of my favorite franchises. That's why they were nominated. They're great franchises. But as a whole, they don't stand up as well, I don't think, as Texas Chainsaw Massacre does. Out of 7 entries, TCM had 1 week entry. Out of Halloween, there's at least 2 to 3 week entries. Out of Friday the 13th, same thing, at least 2 to 3 week entries. Nightmare on Elm Street, several week entries. Maybe not 3, but at least 2 week entries. So, it goes without saying that Texas Chainsaw Massacre, for me, takes the win for the best horror film franchise of all time. So let's go ahead and keep it moving to the next one, which is Best Horror Film Remake. Now, this is a category that I absolutely love because I do enjoy remakes. Not all of them, but there is a good bit of them that I think are really well done, that I think bring something to the genre and I enjoy watching. So those are likely the ones that are nominated, of course, since I'm choosing the nominations. So let's look at the 4 that I have chosen here. Number 1 is Maniac from 2012. Night of the Living Dead from 1990. The Hills Have Eyes remake from 2006. And Dawn of the Dead remake, obviously, from 2004. Now, these 4 films all have something very unique that they bring to the table. I feel they were all done extremely well and did justice to the respective original titles. Some people may disagree with this, but these are my picks only, so don't shoot the messenger. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and look at this Best Horror Film Remake, and the winner is Maniac. And you know what? The Maniac film, for those who haven't seen it, the remake is astonishing. Obviously, the original is a true classic. Joe Spinell and William Lustig. It is a true slasher classic. But I gotta say, the remake with Elijah Wood impressed me tenfold. I think that the music in it, the kills, the characters, the storyline, how they rolled with it, I think it was just overall done very, very well. Very enjoyable. The soundtrack is almost hypnotic. I think the first-person view, the POV type killing, I thought was very unique and new. Just a very, very enjoyable film overall and a great remake, in addition to all the other remakes listed in this category and the other nominees. Moving on, we have the Best Horror Film Sequel, which kind of goes with the prequel category, which is going to be coming up here soon. And yeah, Best Horror Film Sequel, one of my favorite categories. Let's get right into the nominations. Best Horror Film Sequel, Creepshow 2 from 1982, absolute classic, one of my favorite films of all time. Halloween 2 from 1981, another classic, great continuation. Friday the 13th Part 3 from 1982, another one just really well done. And Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 from 1986. Now, all 4 of these, I hugely adore these films and love them. They're all very special to me in their own way, but there can only be one winner out of the 4 nominees. So let's not waste any more time and get right into it. The winner for Best Horror Film Sequel is Friday the 13th Part 3. Now, Friday the 13th is one of those films that's not really mentioned a whole lot throughout here, but there's a reason that I do enjoy Friday the 13th so much, and I think it's such an amazing, excellent film. Part 3 is the first one that obviously we get to see the mask, Jason's mask. It's the first time that it's shown. He actually gets the mask. Some of the kills are the best in it, but for me, the real scene stealer is the last scene when you see Jason's face without the mask in the house looking down. It's just such an iconic scene, and when he runs out of the front of the house, I just think it's so terrifying and so well done. It sticks out to me as one of the most memorable scenes, if not the most memorable, in the entire franchise, right along with him getting the mask. So that's why for me, you gotta say Friday the 13th Part 3 for the best horror film sequel. Moving on to the next category, we have Best Horror Film Prequel. Now this kind of goes hand in hand with sequels. Obviously these are ones that take place before the original respective films came out, and we have 4 on the list. That is Prometheus from 2012, The Thing from 2011, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning from 2006, and Hannibal Rising from 2007. All great entries to these respective franchises, but there can only be one, so let's go ahead and see who the winner is. Best Horror Film Prequel, and the winner is The Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning. Now, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning to me was an interesting film because when it first came out, I wasn't huge on it because I felt it relied too much on shock and gore and didn't necessarily focus enough on the storyline and what was going on in the film. Over the years, I've come to appreciate it a lot more than I do or originally did, and I think it is a really well done film. I think it fits in great. I think it's awesome how it shows where Thomas Hewitt came from and kind of the origins of the family. I just really love that whole idea and concept and think it was really well done. So yeah, without a doubt, Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning, that's the one that takes it for me. Now, we're going to go ahead and keep it moving. Best Horror Film Villain. Now, this is a one that was pretty hard for me to choose because there's so many iconic horror villains over the years that have been encapsulated into what exactly, we call this horror franchise. There's so many that are just great villains. So I had to narrow it down to 4. So, Best Horror Film Villain. Number 1, the Tall Man from Phantasm. Chop Top from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Hannibal Lecter from the Silence of the Lambs franchise, and Drake from Hobo with a Shotgun. Now, some of you may not be familiar with Drake from Hobo with a Shotgun. He is absolutely brilliant. He's one of the greatest villains, especially with his kids. Ivan and Spike, I think, are just great characters as well. And, the Tall Man from Phantasm, boy, do I have to say more than that? Chop Top, absolutely brilliant. I have a Chop Top t-shirt, huge fan of him. Bill Moseley is amazing. Hannibal Lecter, Anthony Hopkins, the maniacal genius. It's so well done. But there can only be one once again. So the Best Horror Film Villain winner is the Tall Man, and rightfully so. Phantasm is one of them franchises that we haven't really talked about yet in tonight's show. But it is a great film, and it's so underrated in my opinion. The whole Phantasm franchise is absolutely brilliant to me. 1 through 4, I enjoy all of them. I'm looking forward to the 5th one. I heard that Don Coscarelli is supposed to be coming back to do a 5th one, which I would absolutely love to see. I would love Angus Scrimm and a lot of the originals to come back. Reggie Bannister, and I want to see that happen. So yeah, that takes that one on. Moving on, we have the Best Horror Film Score. Now, this is an interesting category I wanted to touch on because I don't think the composers necessarily get the shine that they should for what they do in horror. And I think that there's some really great horror films that's out there that deserve to be, noticed and put on a pedestal. So without further ado, the Best Horror Film Score. The nominees for this are The Burning from 1981, Creepshow from 1982, Day of the Dead from 1985, and the Maniac remake from 2012. All great films with amazing soundtracks as well. The Best Horror Film Score winner is The Burning. And you know what? The Burning is really well done. Rick Wakeman, who is the keyboardist, I believe, from Yes, just an absolutely great composer. Did a phenomenal job of putting together the synths and the moogs for the soundtrack and kept it cohesive and just brilliant throughout. It's one of those soundtracks that I've sampled time and time again. I absolutely love the sound of it, the synthesizers. I think the macabre and the maniacalness, if that is a word, kind of comes out in it. I think you can feel like the heart and the terror in the music really well without using a lot of courses and pads. It's done with moogs and synths, which is very unique and interesting in my opinion. But yeah, that's definitely without a doubt the best horror film score, The Burning from 1981. Moving along here, we're going to go ahead and get into the next set of categories. We are officially through the halfway point. We are going to keep it moving. We have the best horror film director. Now this is a category that obviously is very important in horror film making. You can't have a film without a great director, so this is a very coveted award right here. And the nominees for the best horror film director are Wes Craven, known for Nightmare on Elm Street, Scream, and Wishmaster. Clive Barker, known for the Hellraiser franchise. John Carpenter, known for Halloween, They Live, and The Thing, one of my favorites. And George A. Romero from Night, Dawn, and Day of the Dead trilogy. So, there can only be one though to move on, so best horror film director. And the winner is John Carpenter. John Carpenter is just an amazing, talented man. Excuse me. He's extremely talented, great director, great composer. A lot of people don't realize he composes almost all his films, or contributes to the composition of all his films, and does just amazing original synthesizer work. Just very well done. He obviously came up with the theme for Halloween, among many other great themes from, The Fog. I believe he did some composition on They Live, Prince of Darkness. A lot of the films that he takes part in, he does the compositions for. So just an extremely, extremely talented director and composer all the way around. Just amazing, and put out some of my favorite horror films of all time, including Halloween. So without a doubt, John Carpenter, best horror film director, without a doubt. Keeping it moving on here. Drying up on my throat. Best horror film makeup. Now this is a category that's very fun to dive into. I'm a huge Tom Savini fan, Greg Nicotero, Dick Smith, a lot of the guys that, Rick Baker, a lot of the guys that just have done amazing design and makeup for films over the years. There can only be one, obviously, so let's go ahead and look at the nominees for this. Best horror film makeup, we have The Prowler from 1981, makeup artist Tom Savini. Which is interesting to mention, Tom Savini is involved in all four of these films, so I'm not even going to mention that anymore. But Tom Savini's involved in all four of these, I believe co-partnering with Greg Nicotero on two of them, at least one of them. But once again, the nominees are The Prowler from 1981, The Burning from 1981, Day of the Dead from 1985, and Creepshow from 1982. All phenomenal films that have really, really well done artwork, makeup effects that are just top of the line in my opinion. Tom Savini is just so amazing and talented, very talented guy. So let's go ahead and look at this. Best horror film makeup winner is going to be Creepshow. Now this isn't a big surprise. Creepshow is one of those films that is an anthology film, in the golden age of the 80s horror films, and just really well done. Now, the reason the Creepshow was picked as the winner for this is several reasons. All of these films are great contenders for artwork. You got The Prowler, The Burning, Day of the Dead, Creepshow. All of these bring amazing film artwork to, makeup effects to these films, without a doubt. But Creepshow to me kind of showed the versatility with the crate monster and the high tide zombies that come back with the seaweed on them. The Father's Day zombie. It was a very good variation and mix of different types of makeup that I think really made it set out and stand on its own. So yeah, without a doubt, best horror film makeup has to go to Creepshow, 1982. Tom Savini artwork, just absolutely top notch. Moving on, we have best horror film CGI. Now this is one a lot of real die-hard 80s horror fans are probably going to hate on me for even having this category, but I do think it needs to be addressed because there is some really great CGI effect films that should be noticed and highlighted. So we're going to go ahead and discuss those. There's 4 nominees for this category, best horror film CGI, and they are as follows: Dead Snow from 2009, Cabin in the Woods from 2012, Final Destination from 2000, and Van Helsing from 2004. all 4 of which showcase excellent use of CGI, proper CGI within horror films that I feel meet up to the standards of being successful and well done and put together well. So there can only be one. Best horror film CGI winner is Van Helsing. And you know what? Without a doubt, Van Helsing is one of those films that uses extreme CGI. There's tons of CGI in it. Nearly all the monsters are done using CGI. I think all of them are use CGI, but they're done very well. The Frankenstein, the vampires, you know, Mr. Hyde, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, they're all done extremely well and, you know, have a great look to them and bring something to the film. They're not just put in there. It's not CGI for the sake of being CGI. It's CGI, you know, to make the backbone of the film, which I think is the right way to do it. Very well done and just a great film overall. Yeah, Van Helsing takes that one without a doubt. Moving on, Best Supernatural Horror Film. This is a category that I do enjoy. There's lots of great stuff in here. We have 4 nominees, and the nominees are Poltergeist from 1982, The Changeling from 1980, The Exorcist from 1973, and The Omen from 1976. Now all of these are 70s and 80s classic films, some of the best time and era for supernatural, paranormal type films in this era. So without further ado, we have to have a winner. Best Supernatural Horror Film, and the winner is Poltergeist. Now, Poltergeist is one of those films that doesn't seem to get a ton of attention or a lot of people talking about it. I'm not really sure why. I really enjoy Poltergeist and the sequels to it. I think it's one of the greatest supernatural, paranormal type films that's ever been done. Just really enjoyable, great characters. I love the Caroline character. And yeah, just a really well done film with a great backstory, awesome effects, very fun film as well. Poltergeist, just amazing. Moving on here, this is a category that I've been looking forward to doing. This is Best Foreign Horror Film. Now, there's a lot of foreign horror films out there. Obviously, the US, we're only one country out of the world, so a very small percentage. There's tons of other stuff out there made all over the world, great horror films, and a lot of it doesn't get seen by us. However, if you dig deep enough, you can find some of these gems. I've been lucky enough to, over the last 5-10 years, really get my hands dug into a lot of the other stuff that doesn't really hit the States, a lot of this import stuff, and there's a lot of classics. However, I was only able to pick 4, so Best Foreign Horror Film nominees are Frontiers from 2007, Martyrs from 2008, Inside from 2007, and Inferno from 1980. All 4 of these are just absolutely great films, but as you know by now, there can only be one, so we're going to keep it moving. The winner is, for Best Foreign Horror Film, Inside. Inside is a very brutal, graphic horror film with a lot of depth to it, a lot of substance, and a great story. The first time I saw it, it blew my mind when, you know, everything's revealed at the end and the whole story comes together. I thought it was very well done. The gore is top notch. It is super brutal and savage. There is no holding back. It is one of the most intense, nail-biting, edge-of-your-seat films I've ever seen in the horror genre, period. And just very well done. Highly recommended film. Great winner without a doubt. Inside from 2007 for Best Foreign Horror Film. Now, moving on, this is a category, and these next few categories are some of the big ones. So we're going to go ahead and look at Best Horror TV Show. Now, this is one that a lot of people are going to be talking about, I'm sure, because there's so many new modern horror TV shows, but I didn't want to focus on those because I don't watch a lot of those. These are only things that I own in my collection as well, so keep that in mind. Best Horror TV Show, the nominees are Tales from the Crypt, 1989, Twilight Zone from 1959, Tales from the Dark Side from 1983, and Masters of Horror from 2005. All of these are great franchise series, well, series, not franchises. All these are great series that I've enjoyed over the years, but there can only be one winner, so let's go ahead and look at who the winner is on this one. The winner is, for Best Horror TV Show, Tales from the Crypt. Tales from the Crypt is just an amazing show. It ran for 7 seasons, spawned a ton of episodes, and each one of them brought something really unique to the series, I think. You know, they were always so fun. They always had good actors in them. They always had great stories. I love the Crypt Keeper character. John Kassir is an awesome guy. I actually know him. He's from Maryland. very cool guy. He was the voice of the Crypt Keeper. One of my favorite franchises. I'm hoping one day we get it on Blu-ray. I got the DVD set. I want it on Blu-ray. I believe it's right up here over my shoulder. But an absolute classic TV show, just the best. I mean, I grew up watching it. It used to be on HBO. I would stay up late as hell to watch it when I was a kid. And you know what? If it came back on TV, I'd still do the same even though I own it, just because of that nostalgia and how much I love that TV show. Just absolutely brilliant and amazing. The next one here is another very big category, and that is goriest horror film. Now, this is one that you can imagine there's going to be some savage stuff in here. But not necessarily. You might be surprised because some of the goriest aren't always the most savage. We have 4 nominees here, obviously, as usual, so let's get right into them. The first one is Dead Alive from 1992. The second one is Inside from 2007. Next, we have Hostel 2 from 2007 and Hobo with a Shotgun from 2011. All of these films showcase extreme gore, very brutal and savage stuff. So, without further ado, goriest horror film winner is Dead Alive. And Dead Alive is one of them films that really brings the gore to a whole new level. One of the most infamous scenes in horror cinema period is obviously the lawnmower scene. Excuse me, if you're not familiar with that, the lawnmower scene, basically the main character straps a lawnmower to his chest and is running through a house full of zombies like a maniac. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. It's very, very gory. There's tons of blood in it. I don't think I've seen a bloodier, gorier scene. Just gratuitous amounts of blood and gore in it. But it is absolutely brilliant. I do love it. It stands out for me as being one of the most fun and great horror films to watch and sit down and enjoy. And it's a Peter Jackson film, which not a lot of people may know. And Peter Jackson is obviously the guy behind Lord of the Rings. So you learn something new every day if you didn't know that. Moving on, we're going to keep it moving. We are at the last fourth of this show, so let's go ahead and get into the last few categories we have here, which is Best Horror Film Actor. Now, these last few are all very big categories, so lots of good stuff here. Best Horror Film Actor, and the nominees are Bruce Campbell, best known for playing Ash from the Evil Dead franchise, Kane Hodder, best known for playing Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th, Robert Englund, best known for playing Freddy Krueger from A Nightmare on Elm Street, and Tony Todd, best known for playing Candyman from the Candyman franchise. So, great actors. All have participated in many more films than the ones that I mentioned or what they're famous for, but that's what they're most notably known for. Out of these 4 nominees, obviously only one can go on. So, Best Horror Film Actor, the winner is Robert Englund. Robert Englund is just one of them great horror actors that I think can really do a lot more than a lot of other guys. He brings the depth, he has the emotion, he brings the comedic side when he's doing A Nightmare on Elm Street. I think that he can encompass the serious scary and the fun scary and do a great job of combining them. I think it's just done really well. I just absolutely love Robert Englund in horror films. Even, one of his more recent ones, Incubus, which I believe he was also behind directing. Just a really good film with a different side of him. No makeup really, just kind of a very minimalistic type look and done very well. Because a lot of people say, well, if you have a mask or makeup on, it's easy to act. Well, he's done many roles and so have many of these other actors without mask and makeup, and they do a phenomenal job. That to me is the real genuine test of a great horror film actor. So for me, Robert Englund just takes the cake. I love my man Kane Hodder. He's awesome, but for me it's got to be Robert Englund just for taking it overall for Best Horror Film Actor. Moving on to the next one, this goes right with it, and that is Best Horror Film Actress. There are some really great ones out there. It was hard for me to narrow it down to these 4, but these 4 I feel are the ones that really stand out. And that is Danielle Harris of Halloween and Hatchet fame, Dee Wallace of Critters, The Howling, and The Hills Have Eyes fame, Jamie Lee Curtis of Halloween, Terror Train, and Prom Night fame, and PJ Souls of Halloween, Carrie, and Devil's Rejects fame. All 4 of these ladies have contributed great amounts to the horror genre in general. They've all been in multiple different horror movies, multiple different franchises, some of the greatest scream queens, and they are absolutely phenomenal. They've really set the way for the modern scream queen and a lot of the modern female actors in horror. These are the ladies that laid down the foundation for them. So we're going to go ahead and look at the best horror film actress. And the winner is PJ Soles. PJ Soles is just so brilliant. She's been in Halloween, Carrie, Devil's Rejects. She's been in a ton of other films. I think she was also in Cujo. She's just so good. And she has that wholesome feel, you know. She's very wholesome and very likable, you know, very likable character. And I like that. I like that kind of girl next door vibe in a character, and I think it does add to it, and I think it does make them a little more sympathetic when something happens, and you feel more remorse with them, and I just really enjoy that. I think she does a great job at it. So yeah, PJ Soles, absolutely phenomenal, knocks it out the park. Moving on, we have a big one here. This is Best Horror Film of 2013. That's right, it's been a great year for horror. There's been some great stuff to come out. Some stuff I haven't seen yet. Still looking forward to seeing The Conjuring, The Purge, and Carrie. Haven't seen those yet, don't own those yet, so I can't include those in this. They may be better than some of the ones I picked, but out of what I've seen and what I own, these are the 4 that I chose. So let's go ahead and look at it. Best Horror Film of 2013. And the nominees are Dark Skies of 2013, World War Z of 2013, Evil Dead Remake of 2013, and VHS 2, also 2013. Obviously, these are all from 2013. But all 4 of these films I absolutely love. Dark Skies is a great alien type film. I thought it was fucking very well done. Very reminiscent of Fire in the Sky, one of my favorite sci-fi horror films. Just very well done. World War Z, I was actually very surprised by and enjoyed. Evil Dead Remake was great. There was some things I didn't like about it, but overall it was a really fun watch. And VHS 2, which I thought was fucking super savage. Loved the stories in it, thought they were great. Lots of fun in that movie. But there can only be one Best Horror Film of 2013, so let's go ahead and look at who the winner is. And the winner for Best Horror Film of 2013, VHS 2. VHS 2 is a horror anthology film that just came out this year, and it is really well done. It's a follow-up to the first VHS film, and it's just done so well. I think that the brutality in it and the gore and the linking of the stories, I think it's just done really well. I love the wraparound story. I know a lot of people aren't huge on the VHS films, but I love them. I'm a sucker for anthology films, and without a doubt, VHS delivered for me, so gotta go with that one. Anyway, we are down to the last 2 categories, and these are 2 of the funnest ones that I had putting together, obviously. This is the only one that's a negative one. We do have a negative one, and that is the worst horror film. That's right, I had to look at the biggest fucking boo-boo in the industry. So, we're going to go ahead and look at it. There's no Troll 2, which now in retrospect could have been on there along with some others, but no Troll 2, which is highly regarded as the worst horror film of all time by many, but I didn't want to include that. I don't even own it, so I couldn't include it. But anyway, worst horror film. The nominees are Automation Transfusion from 2006, Lake Placid 2 from 2007, Prom Night, the original, from 1980, and The Howling 7, New Moon Rising from 1995. These fucking movies suck. They just suck. There's not a whole lot I can say about it. Automation or Automaton Transfusion, however it's pronounced, was filmed with this really fucked up, shitty, choppy filter that makes it like frame by frame. I don't know why the fuck they did it like that. It's terrible. I couldn't sit through more than 10 minutes of it. It was absolutely horrible. Lake Placid 2, bought that movie for full price when I was out of town on vacation. Wish I wouldn't have. Absolutely horrible. Terrible CGI. Far cry from the original. Just absolutely terrible. Prom Night original, I threw that in there just because it's so hyped up and it's such a letdown. I just really didn't enjoy it. I don't think it's necessarily because of Jamie Lee Curtis. I don't know, the story just seemed bland. It didn't seem very action-packed. The ending was just kind of meh. You know, it just didn't do it for me, so had to throw Prom Night on there. And The Howling 7, New Moon Rising, what a piece of shit of film. This film fucking sucked balls. I used to have it on VHS. I think I gave it away or traded it or whatever. So it's actually the only one that's on this list that I don't own anymore, but I did own it at one point in time. I traded it away and got rid of it because it was so fucking bad. And yeah, I won't look back on that one. What a real piece of shit of film. The Howling 7, New Moon Rising. The worst werewolf transformation I've ever seen in a film, hands down. It's fucking terrible. I've, like, seriously, literally, like, the original Wolfman transformations were 50 times better. So moving on, well, looking at this now, the worst horror film winner is Lake Placid 2. Lake Placid 2 is such a fucking wreck. Like I said, the CGI in it is absolutely terrible. It is some of the worst CGI I've ever seen done in a film. Just really, really shoddy work. It's a wreck. I mean, there's not a whole lot more I can say about it. It's a fucking wreck. If you've seen Lake Placid, it's nothing like the original. It's really, really, really shoddy. I know there's a part 3 and 4. I haven't seen them yet. I'm looking forward to seeing them. Even though the second is that bad, I just want to see if they improved or if it gets worse or what. I mean, I can't see it getting much worse than it already was, so it can't get a lot worse than that. But that wraps it up for worst horror film, Lake Placid 2. What a fucking piece of shit. And that brings us to the last one. This is the very last category, which I'm sure you can already figure out, is best horror film. It's the only thing that we haven't looked at yet. So best horror film, we have it right here. The answer's in here. We have 4 nominees for best horror film. This was extremely hard to narrow down, even just out of my collection, which is roughly 1,000+ movies. It was extremely hard to narrow it down just to these 4 films that are my top ones, but I did narrow it down. And they are as follows. The nominees are Day of the Dead from 1985, Return of the Living Dead from 1985, The Burning from 1981, and American Psycho from 2000. Now, all 4 of these films have a lot to offer. You got a lot of 80s goods in there, and then obviously American Psycho, which is, to me, one of the, obviously one of the best modern slashers, but one of the best modern horror films, period. It's just so well done, so enjoyable. Patrick Bateman. Christian Bale does a great job as Patrick Bateman in the film. Just an extremely foul character, really well done. I love his mannerisms. I love his thought process and how he's very upper class and just the whole New York vibe. I think it's just absolutely done brilliantly and just a great film overall. But there can only be one winner for best horror film of all time, so let's go ahead and look at that. The winner for best horror film is Day of the Dead. Anyone that knows me already knew what the answer was to this before I even opened up the envelope. Day of the Dead for me is one of those films, it transcends time. I mean, everything about it is brilliant. The music, the effects, the acting, the kills, just, the story, like, I can't pick one thing out about that movie that I don't like. Seriously, it's one of the few films, that and Return of the Living Dead, they're like 2 of the only films, and The Burning, you know what I mean? These are certain films that I just can't find things I don't like about them. There's nothing. I love the music, I love the actors, I love the story, I love the plot, I love the fucking, the acting in it. I mean, everything about these films I absolutely adore and love. But Day of the Dead for me is just that fucking standout horror film. George Romero's masterpiece. Even he says it's his masterpiece and claims it to be his best work to date. It is just a brilliant film. It's a true staple in the horror community. It's a staple in that franchise, and it's a staple in horror cinema in general. Most people love Day of the Dead. If you're not familiar with Day of the Dead, that's one film that I have to recommend to you. The original, not the remake, not that fucking piece of shit. Yeah, don't do that to yourself. Don't watch that one. Watch the original 1985 George A. Romero Day of the Dead. Enjoy one of the greatest classic horror films of all time. And that pretty much wraps it up. That's all 25 categories. We just sailed through all of them. I hope you guys had a great time. I appreciate everybody tuning in, sitting with me through this, and watching the show. Make sure you tune back in next year, where I will be bringing yet again another episode of this. We will have the 2014 annual Horror Film Collection Awards, so make sure you tune in for that. I'm gonna keep doing these as long as I can. I enjoy doing these. I hope you guys enjoyed tuning in. Hopefully you got to learn something. Maybe you got to hear something about a movie that you enjoy. Hopefully something was brought to you. If not, thanks for tuning in anyway. I appreciate it. I will see you guys back next year. If you did enjoy the video and like what you saw, please subscribe to the channel. Also, make sure you leave a comment down below in the box. I greatly appreciate it. I will see you guys next time. Thanks for tuning in and watching. Peace.
Well, that concludes the annual 2013 Klive Kraven Horror Film Collection Awards. Make sure to tune in next Halloween for another dose of supreme horror. Thanks for all of those who've tuned in and watched the show. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a comment. Once again, special shoutouts to our sponsor, Goldminded Records. Visit them at www.goldmindedrecords.com. They're not your friends.
Ah!